All right, what we've got in front of us are four trigger test jigs for AR-15, AR-10 triggers. I'm not sure if these are really the common ones. I know the Strike Industries one is pretty common. You see these sold in a lot of places. This is a KE Arms. Where's the engraving? Maybe this one doesn't have it. Um, Anyways, this is a KE Arms jig. Some of them are engraved KE Arms. This one apparently isn't. I got a whole bunch of these. This one is probably pretty rare. You're probably not going to see this in a lot of places, but this is made by Hiperfire, the same people that make the Hiperfire triggers. And then this one is a LaRue tack, which kind of new for 2016, 2017, or LT tack, I guess. This is the only one in the group that is made out of polymer. So I'm just gonna go over features and what I like, what I don't like about these. But yeah, I basically have a bunch of AR triggers that I'm evaluating, and I determined that this is the best way to evaluate them, is to put them into jigs and then do side-by-side dry fires. Trying to do this in a gun it's doable, but it's really clumsy and it's not a good experience. Just because in order to evaluate two triggers in a gun, you're gonna have two guns, and then you have to worry about muzzle control and where you're gonna do this. You're gonna do this in your house. A lot easier. Plus, in a real gun, you shoot or you release the trigger, and then you gotta pull the charging handle. It's just clunky. This thing I can reset really quickly, with a finger. So that's why these things are great for evaluating triggers, and highly recommend getting as many as you need to evaluate as many triggers. Minimum two, because you're going to evaluate one trigger against another. Even better if you can get more than two. That way you don't have to spend time taking one out of a jig and then putting another one in, and then by that time your short-term memory has already forgotten how that trigger felt. All right, so I digress. These two are my favorite. And then these two, not so my favorite, especially this LaRue one. Don't really like it at all. So let me get into why I like these ones. So first of all, these are machined from aluminum. And let me say off the bat that there's a LaRue MBT trigger in these three. This one has a CMC. So for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm pretty close in the setup, except for this one. I do actually have a fourth LaRue trigger. It's in a gun. I'm not taking it out for this. So these aluminum machine ones, they have a decent amount of weight, and they have a more or less standard AR profile, not so much on the strike, but it's close. In this kind of like webbing area, so you can put on standard AR grip, whatever grip. And they also have a rubber stop that catches the hammer. So, see. This one, the Strike Industries, has a very significant buffer, rubber buffer that catches that hammer. Obviously, all these jigs have some sort of stop to catch the hammer, but these ones, they just feel solid, and they also feel similar to each other. Now, if you just get a whole bunch of these, they're all the same. They're all going to feel the same. But if you have to mix and match, these two match up pretty good. This one, I've noticed, it's there's a little bit more of a shock. So this is like I think a cast aluminum, not machined, and the Hyperfire, and it's louder. So for whatever reason, the design of this and the rubber buffer is audibly louder, which does affect your mental, because your brain is processing everything. It's not just processing the feel of trigger. It's going to process that sound unless you're wearing earmuffs, which again, I'm not going to do that because it's dumb. So it's louder, so it makes you think that these triggers might be a little bit harsher compared to, so this is the same trigger. See, it's much more dull of a sound. in those two are the exact same trigger. Plus there's a little bit more vibration that comes through the grip, just probably due to the buffer as well, since this is a smaller buffer compared to, say, that. So basically that's kind of like, really the crux of it is the sound and the feel through the grip. And then this one is obviously the worst, because there's no rubber stop. It's a polymer stop, so it's not going to damage the hammer, but this thing, like, that is loud, super loud. And also you get vibration that comes down through the grip more so than these two, which is going to, you know, influence how you gauge these triggers. This is the same trigger in this and this, and yet if I handed someone these two jigs and they compared them, they are not going to say the same thing, especially in the, you know, like a double blind test. They're going to say, well, these two triggers are different because whatever, my brain's telling me they're different, but they're not. Same trigger. So I guess if you had just all of these and you're comparing and maybe you wore earmuffs, it'd be okay. But I mean, given how much these cost, is like, there's really no reason not to go with these. I think these Strike Industries ones are like $35, and these KE ones are about $45, $50. They do add up if you get a whole bunch of them, but yeah, just something about, you know, these polymer ones. I know Ruger makes a polymer one. I'm inclined, I don't have it, I've never held it, but I'm inclined to say it's going to be similar to the LaRue. And with the LaRue, you can do stuff like, I'm thinking this might be like kind of acting like an echo chamber. So, you know, I filled this up with closed cell foam, and I've also put my own buffer. It doesn't really help. It's a softer thud, but the thud is still louder, and I still feel the vibration through the grip. No contest. So yeah, I tried my best to fix this one, couldn't do it, so I'm probably not going to keep this one. I got another one. You get them free with the MBT trigger sometimes on sale. So I'm not really bummed that I didn't pay for this, but... Oh, and the other thing is, this profile here is designed for the LaRue grips. You try to put another grip on here and you're going to get all kinds of weird gaps here, because this is not a standard AR webbing profile. This profile is cut for these grips, so you kind of, I mean, if you put another grip here, it'll work. You won't feel that gap, but you'll see it, and I don't know, this is weird. The fitment is just designed for these kind of grips, whereas these other ones are more generic. They'll fit pretty much any AR grip, with or without the beaver tail, and you know, I like it without the beaver tail, so these more or less flush. Yeah, so in a nutshell, there's that. So Strike, KE arms, good. Hyperfire, for the same amount of money, I wouldn't get this again. I'd get more of these two. And then these, I mean, if they're free, whatever. I would not pay money for these the way they are. They just, too harsh. Too harsh. Gotta get them made out of metal, or maybe more thicker polymer and more buffering. But at that point, I don't know, go with these. All right.